Want to hear something amazing? Discover matches all the cash back you earn on your credit card at the end of your first year, automatically, dollar for dollar, with no limit on how much you can earn. Extra cash? Come on, how amazing is that? In fact, it's even more amazing when you realize all the places where Discover is accepted. 99% of places in the U.S. that take credit cards. So when it comes to Discover, get used to hearing yes more often. Learn more at discover.com/yes. 2020 Nielsen Report. Limitations apply.
Save your most important documents and photos in the cloud. A Microsoft 365 subscription gives you a full terabyte of secure OneDrive storage, plus an added layer of protection with OneDrive Personal Vault. Buy now at Microsoft365.com/photos.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. What's going on, everybody? What's going on? You have tuned into the Cigars with Mac podcast. I had to take a little break for a minute, had to really think about how I wanted the direction of this podcast to go. I've been definitely doing some thorough researching because I wanted to do have our own platform as far as where the shows will be archived, and also I wanted to be able to distribute the show on different podcast platforms. So I pretty much narrowed it down what I'm gonna do, and so I'd like everyone to stay tuned for that. I'm glad that a few people are listening to the podcast. That definitely feels good. And I want to give, I know everybody is quarantining right now, but there are some people who still actually have to go to work because they are essential workers. So I want to be able to provide some good quality content for you. That's what I want to do. I want to provide some good quality content, and I want to just make your day a little better, plain and simple. And today, I'm smoking a Plasencia Alma Forte. Again, Plasencia Alma Forte. I purchased a box of them from one of my favorite cigar shops in Funky Town, aka Fort Worth, Texas, Paladin Cigars. Go check them out. If you're ever in the Fort Worth area, check out Paladin Cigars. Matthew is a very good friend of mine. Anyway, I wanted to just kind of talk about a few things today, but I definitely wanted to go into detail about how I really want to take this podcast to the next level. I think that this is something, I can definitely grow into, but I like it because there's really no certain format. The biggest thing is just growing your audience, and as we all know, growing an audience takes time. Nothing was built overnight. So I would love to just really make this thing grow, and I am going to make it grow, and I understand that it does take time. So just be patient with me. I want to podcast every day if I can, to be honest with you, But if I don't, please don't hold it to me, because this is something that I can do that's really not. It's structured, but it's a bit unorthodox. You'll never know when I'm gonna drop a show, pretty much. but I definitely want to be consistent. But at the same token, I also want to, let it be organic. We all have to, we all live a pretty, at least some of us anyway, a pretty organized life. And sometimes a little chaos ain't that bad. So anyway, I want to promote different businesses, small businesses, big businesses, whoever would like to advertise with me. But to advertise, I definitely got to continue to network, and I also have to have a website, plain and simple. I was just sitting here thinking to myself, I was talking to my wife about it, and I was listening to a video on YouTube, and it really amazes me how people, grown folks, love to scold and chastise other grown people. And I understand sometimes people need to be corrected. That's understandable, but all the time? Nah, not all the time. I've noticed in my lifetime, nobody is, of course, above reproach, but people are still human. And I find people that try to, quote unquote, hold people accountable, they're probably the most unaccountable people. If you notice that, has anybody else noticed that? I've noticed that. That's I'm very observant. I've always been like that my whole life. My mom said I was like that even as a baby. I was very observant. I was always watching. I wasn't saying much, but I was always watching. Sorry about that. Cigar. A little ashtray making noise. Anyway, I'm definitely happy to be here today. It is currently 12:30 a.m. May 1st. Just talking today, me and my wife, and we were just saying, man, this year is really flying by. I always ask myself, and I always tell myself that every year I want to always be progressing. If I'm making $100,000 this year, next year I want to be making at least $105,000 or 101. That's $1,000 more than I made last year. Just progressing. You should be, every year you should be bettering yourself, doing more, being more, growing more. I feel like that's what we as human beings should be doing. I never want to stand still, And of course, I'm 33, about to be 34. And, I just learned that in my 30s, I kind of took life a little bit more serious, if that makes sense to you. I just feel like when I hit 30, something just, actually 29, something just kind of clicked, Something kind of clicked in my head, and my whole perspective on life changed, It really did change. And I just simply feel that, especially for a man, it's something about the majority of men, because some men in their 30s, they don't grow up. They don't grow up at all, And I was watching a particular YouTuber I like to listen to, and he was speaking of how he spoke of in your 30s how you should be making progressions, but I would have to actually disagree with that. I really would. The reason why is because 30s you're still going through growing pains. The torch. I just smoked cigars since I was in the military. I was in the Army, and I'll never forget this officer introduced me to cigars. At the time, his name was Captain Brian Murray. He's a major now, I believe, or probably Lieutenant Colonel. He put me on the cigars, man, and I I've been hooked ever since. So it makes sense to, like I always say, this is the Cigars with Mac podcast. So it only makes sense to have a cigar. Duh. Anyway, I was chatting with a friend of mine from middle school. His name is Justin Knoll. I hope he doesn't mind me divulging his name. He's a very good-hearted man. He's always been like that. Anyway, he was mentioning to me something comical. He was asking me that I remember reading in English class back in middle school, and I said, yeah, I remember that. I remember them days, man. Being a youth. I was born in a small town called Monroe, Louisiana. That's Ouachita Parish. They were recently hit with a bad tornado. I definitely send my prayers out to them. Anyway, but at 5 years old, my mother moved us to Garland, Texas. And I can remember, man, being a kid at 5 years old. My brother and I thought that people would be riding on horses and wagons, because I grew up watching cowboy shows. I still do love Matt Dillon, Gunsmoke. Matt Dillon is on Gunsmoke, Bonanza, Lone Ranger, any cowboy movie, I love it. But when I moved to Texas at 5 years old, we moved to Garland, Texas. Garland, Texas is within, of course, Dallas County, man, but I love Garland. I still love Garland to this day. I just don't want to live there, I love Fort Worth. If you're ever in Texas, especially the DFW area, you need to pay a visit to Fort Worth, Texas, the stockyards. Fort Worth is actually where the West began. Anyway, man, I love Fort Worth. I love it. I really do, man. There's good people out here. Fort Worth puts me in the mind of Monroe, Louisiana, where people actually still speak to one another. It's very small. It's a small town feel, but Fort Worth is huge, guys. It's so much opportunity out here. It's so much growth and development in Fort Worth, Texas. It's a little slower than Dallas also. But you can actually have a good time in Fort Worth. I have. Man, it's so much to do out here. So much growth out here. And this cigar is very good. This is a very good cigar. Plasencia. Man, this has some great, smooth, somewhat creamy flavor. It's good. This is looking at the wrapper, it looks like a Maduro wrapper. It's not really, it's dark, but it's not really dark. But this is a damn good stick. This motherfucker hot too. Shit, this motherfucker hot. This box was a pretty nice penny for only 10 cigars came in there. But hey, sometimes you gotta treat yourself, man. You gotta, we all got a vice. My vice is cigars. Hey, what can I say? Anyway, I definitely appreciate everyone tuning in. Like I said before, when a friend of mine listened to it, I got another couple friends that listen to it, man. And I know it's only a couple of people, but man, it feels good that they give me their feedback, and and it just feels good. And the beauty about podcasting is there really is no right or wrong way to do it. This isn't like a radio. Radios, there's format and things like that. I see guys with microphones and all that with their podcasts, and that's fine, but technology is so advanced with our cell phones, man, that you don't really need that nowadays. Your cell phone sounds like you sitting in a sound booth. That's how good it sounds, And of course, I'm pretty sure with me, there's probably a little feedback, but I don't give a damn. I don't really care. It sounds good. professional, and it is what it is, man. But anyway, today I wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like being a millennial in 2020. Millennial, man, we really, man, have been through a lot of shit. We've been through 9/11, the recession, now this pandemic. I mean, we're finding people saying that they lost their jobs and things of that nature, but millennials, we've been losing jobs. I've been laid off from a job twice. Laid off twice. Luckily, I was union at the time, so they called me back. But, they laid me off twice, man. I was a union man for 6 years. Union all the way, and man, I mean, we've definitely, the days of us being on a job, at least the same job for 30 years and retiring with the golden parachute, that's not going to happen. That day is obsolete, really, if you ask me. But anyway, as a millennial, we really, I would say the majority of us across the board, black, white, even in other countries on the planet, we know how to adapt and overcome. That's an old military saying. Old military saying, adapt and overcome. And I tell you, the older I get, the more I learn how in life you have to be able to adapt and overcome. Plain and simple, man. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but when you work, even in business, even in relationships, something I adopt is I never really get comfortable. I never really get comfortable. Something that's a bad habit with people is they get comfortable with people, they get comfortable with their job, and that's a bad habit. It's a bad habit. Even at the job, I see people hang pictures and they got their, wife and kids on the computer screen. They got photos at the job. I don't believe in that, because my whole mentality is at any moment, I could get that pink slip, which I've gotten a couple times. So, that's why I never get comfortable at a job. I enjoy what I do for a living, for a career. I really do. But at the end of the day, there's always that thought in the back of my mind that, this could end tomorrow. This could end right now. So I never really get comfortable. And maybe that's just a millennial thing. I think it is. I really do, because we have been through a lot. We really have. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm giving a pity party, because I'm not. But sometimes you got to sit back and say, man, look how far I've come. Look how far I have come. Look how far I've come, man. So, you got to sit back and reflect on that. That's something you got to reflect on. I was watching a few news outlets, And they were saying that millennials are not homeowners. Millennials are late to get married, have children. Millennials are not loyal to companies. And I want to talk about those things. You know, you got to remember, we live in a different day and time now. We just do. You know, I'm not against marriage. You know, I am married, been married for 13 years. But at the end of the day, man, it's a different day and time now. People are really, really, really more cautious. You know, for instance, I was watching Steve Jackson, aka Stack 5, his video, and he's a professional, retired professional NBA player. He was talking about, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but he was basically talking about his first wedding that he was supposed to get married. He ended up not marrying her. You know, he was trying to make her sign a prenup, and she didn't want to do it, and things like that. And the wedding was called off. But this is where we are nowadays, man. You got to protect yourself. You got to protect yourself, man. Especially men, you got to protect yourself. You know, we as men don't think about stuff like prenups. Even the common man, the man that's not making millions a year, you know. You got to protect yourself, man. You know, you just never know nowadays what's going to happen, you know. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a pessimist, but and I am very optimistic about a lot of things, but I also deal with life for what it is, not for what I want it to be. I just don't deal with life like that. I don't know how you guys deal with life, but that's not how I deal with life. You know? And we got to protect ourselves, man. We really do, man. We really do. Something I always think about, you know. Back to what I was saying as far as marriage, people are not really getting married like they used to, you know. People kind of frown on marriage, but I do believe after this pandemic is over, things won't be the same again. I can tell you that much. I know that for a fact. But I also believe that divorces will go down. Now, I don't have any stats on that. I could be all wrong, but man, this type of thing, I couldn't imagine, being, a single guy by myself going through this pandemic right now. I couldn't imagine it, man. Being at home by myself and all that, I couldn't imagine that. But that's just me, though, man. Real involved with my kids, homeschooling, distance learning, but it's pretty much homeschool. I couldn't imagine, man, just doing it, man, being here by myself, man. It'd be boring, man. My kids, I love them, man. They crack me up, man. They funny, they really are. The thing about kids, man, kids be thinking, man. Kids be thinking. But anyway, marriages will go up, man. Mark my word. Another thing, home buying. I believe people are under the notion that they're going to be able to get stuff for dirt cheap and all that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. And the reason why a lot of millennials don't purchase homes is plain and simple, man, student loan debt. They're in a lot of debt, man, a lot of debt. I know some of the opinions of a lot of non-white people is that white folks really got it good. Their parents leave them a lot of money, but judging by the stats, that can't be true, because these kids, these millennials like myself are in a lot of debt, student loan debt. And man, People in six-figure number debt, man. That's insane, you know? And when you start talking to certain people, they're like, hey, man, when I get this student loan knocked down, then I'll buy my first home. Like I always tell people, a home is not an investment. It's really not. It's a liability, man. It's a liability. Buying a home is a liability. Now, when you rent that home out, and that your tenant, if the house isn't paid for, your tenant, if you can, have the amount, the mortgage paid and make a little cherry on top, now that's an investment. But when you own a home, man, even when you have a warranty, you still got to pay the deductible. You got to pay for little things that break. You got to pay for, of course, the utilities. You got dogs like I do. They break a fence. You got to pay for that. I mean, it's so much, man. So I would suggest to not purchase a home until you are financially ready for that. That's my whole motto. Don't just get a home because you think that's the American thing to do. There has to be something you can afford. And that's why if you come to Fort Worth, houses are a little bit cheaper. For now. But that is one of the things. Two is a lot of millennials statistically don't have emergency funds for a rainy day. That's one of the reasons why, man. A lot of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Gen Xers and baby boomers included. But again, we're talking about the millennials, and a lot of millennials, man, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't think that. I actually think millennials are very frugal with their money, because if you look at these stats, man, 1 minute they're saying millennials don't have a savings, then they're saying millennials are very frugal. So which one is it? Which one is it? But we're going to just say, for the sake of the show, that millennials don't have emergency funds, so that's why they can't purchase homes, become homeowners. But I think, plain and simple, a lot of millennials are like, hey, that's not the route I want to go. My parents had a home. That's great, but they all sorts of negative things came with it, some positive, and I think that's probably why. And that's just my opinion. That's not any stated statistic. There's not any peer-reviewed article. This is just my opinion. But that's another thing. I think millennials also, from what I see, I think we are the side hustle generation. I know so many people that have side hustles and second jobs and businesses on the side. I mean, it is very, man. I remember at one time I used to keep 2 jobs. I was always doing things to make extra money, And of course, back then I wasn't very good at saving money, But I always managed to find second jobs and little side hustles. It's crazy. I remember I would come home some days and take a nap, and then I'd be getting ready. My wife like, where you going? So I found another job. She'd start laughing like, man, how do you find these little second jobs? Excuse me. And that's what I used to do, man. I used to just go on Craigslist and find little jobs on the side I could do to make money, man. I was always trying to stay productive, man. I didn't like sitting down a lot. Now I'm a little older. I value solitude. I value quiet time by myself, because in those quiet times, man, I'm able to think, and I'm able to strategize, and I'm able to save money. I'm able to find ways to save money. Because I'm going to tell you, the true secret is of money. Mastering what you already have. People always say you need more money. But, I get that. But if you don't manage what you already have, when you start making more money, you're going to still have those same bad spending habits. And that's the thing. A lot of times we just have bad spending habits, man. And again, I've been there. And I'm always self-checking myself. I'm not saying I'm just some, frugal, extremely, extremely frugal guy, but I am pretty frugal. But that takes time. That takes, getting your ass kicked out here by life, and getting, being homeless, and having to figure it out. And I just feel like as a millennial, we've been through that. We, like I said before, 2 generations before us, the baby boomers, man, a lot of them came back home. They didn't, they stepped out there, then life didn't work out. They went back to mom and dad's house. A lot of millennials, man, we kind of tough it out. Sometimes you find a lot of millennials, man, they got roommates. They all sharing the risk for the rent and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, man, people trying to save money. Straight up. Especially if you live in a state like California, LA County, very expensive. I think living in LA, $1 million a month is probably what it's going to take to really be somewhat comfortable. But that's how I feel about that situation, and that's how I feel about us millennials. I'm in that category with y'all, man. But I've always felt like that when I started learning about the different generations. I've always felt like that. Even being in the military, man, I can remember when I came through, man, the guys who I came up with, who were, I'm gonna fast forward, my peers that we all we didn't necessarily go through basic training together, but we all kind of were in the same rank and things like that. The majority of us, man, didn't take no shit. We would cuss out the NCO, the officer. We didn't care. Now, some people ain't gonna admit that, but I will. We didn't. A couple guys did, but for the most part, I saw more of a, not necessarily rebellious, but we were like, hey, we volunteered to be here. We wasn't drafted. We wanted to serve our country, but at the end of the day, we still got to be respected like men and women. But I could, notice like older guys who were on their way out the door to retirement, they would speak of how when they came in and they respected this, respected the rank, and they done what they told. They didn't ask no questions, and that's great, man. But I'm not going into a freaking building with gasoline draws on. It's not happening. If it don't make sense, I'm not doing it. A good friend of mine always says, if it doesn't make sense, don't try to make it make sense. And I think as millennials, we question a lot of things. We question religion, we question the workplace, we question when we were in school, we challenged a lot of things because in our mind, we're like, man, that doesn't even make sense. So why am I going to do that? and a lot of the older generation, they don't like that. They expect you to just do it, and that's not how we're built. It's just not. I just think that's not everything that sums up millennials, but that's just some of my thoughts on it. I have me and a couple of friends of mine, we talk about stuff like that, man, about the generations and things like that, man, because it's actually very important, believe it or not. I was reading a book, and the author was speaking of how there are millennials in political positions now. But for the most part, I don't think we really even care about that crap. Because most of us have figured out it's all about money, man. You want that politician to do your bidding, you got to spend that bread on them. Straight up. Straight up, man. You can vote all day long, but if you ain't coming with no financial dividends to vote for your constituent, they're not going to represent you. That's just what it is. So that's what we've learned, man. I'm pretty sure I'll give it about a decade. You'll start seeing more millennials in political positions. It's inevitable, man. And I mean, it's just amazing, man, that we are in such a technologically advanced world, man. I mean, I can remember watching the Jetsons as a kid and seeing some of those things now in place it's crazy, man. It really is crazy, and I think that is what's good about being a millennial, man. Is that we got a little bit of that old school, as far as most of us being latchkey kids, or a lot of us being latchkey kids. But then we're also technically aware. I was watching a video today on Python programming, and this professor was saying programming is something people should just know how to do. And he was speaking of how the Python language is easy to learn, but it's also a very executive type, meaning that this is at the top tier group of programming language that's implemented into our everyday life, and we don't even realize it unless you actually into that world, So, excuse me. And I didn't know that, And it's just amazing, man, how much this world has really advanced. And I think it was always happening, but a lot of people just didn't want to get on board. But this day and time, you have to get on board. It's almost like you have to. I'm subscribed to Wall Street Journal, and the talk of digital currency is really for, especially for Americans being able to use this like the Chinese are. I see that being the future, man. And like I always tell people, even in the workplace, you have a war between the old guard and the new guard. The old guard they want to keep using U.S. currency. The new guard is saying, nah, crypto is the way. Like I said, it's inevitable, man. Some things are just gonna happen regardless. You can't stop it. Who would have ever thought electric cars? Who would have ever thought of people using electric cars? Cars that don't require gas. Man, that is insane. you got to remember, though, when the Model T was created, people were riding horses back then, and the horses was the norm. So when people see a car, automobile, that was really an advanced technology right before their eyes. And then eventually, unless I guess you're Amish, but even I believe some of them use cars to a certain degree. Everybody has cars. I can remember, of course, cell phones have actually been out for over 30 years, probably 40 years. Probably during the 50 years, I believe. Anyway, I remember when I got my first cell phone, it was a flip phone, and then I switched from flip phone to BlackBerry because I really wasn't ready for no touchscreen phone. I'm not gonna lie to you. But then eventually I had to get a touchscreen. It's inevitable, man. That's what I'm saying. Some things are inevitable. And as a millennial, man, we don't mind, changing when we have to, And I think a lot of people, they really don't. I've heard them say, where will the world be when we are the old people? Let that sink in. I mean, that really was like, wow, did you really say that? I mean, you do realize that you're not going to live forever. Change is going to happen, people. And again, I think us as millennials, we don't mind change. We're like, hey, bring it on. So that's how I feel. Anyway, this is going to conclude Cigars and Mac podcast today on my take on millennials in 2020 and beyond. Have a good day, people.
Skiing, riding, sledding, winter biking, winter hiking.
No matter how you Vermont, please Vermont safely.
Cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, snowman building.
This year, that means a 7-day home quarantine with a negative COVID-19 test or a 14-day home quarantine with no symptoms to visit.
Snowball fighting, ice skating, ice climbing, ice fishing, ice cream eating.
So we can all Vermont safely this year.
Dining, craft beering.
Talk to your favorite inner resort about smart travel suggestions, reservation policies, and the best way to Vermont this winter.
Hot cocoaing, antiquing, shopping, fireside napping.
For full COVID-19 travel guidance, visit VermontVacation.com.
Save your most important documents and photos in the cloud. A Microsoft 365 subscription gives you a full terabyte of secure OneDrive storage, plus an added layer of protection with OneDrive Personal Vault. Buy now at Microsoft365.com/photos.